Responsible for some of the most iconic photographs from the 80s heyday of the underground Twin Cities rock and roll scene, photographer Dan Corrigan now resides in northeast Minneapolis.
My name is Dan Corrigan. I was born in 1958 in New York City. Our family moved to Minnesota when I was still young, went to school, Stillwater High School, and graduated in 1976, and then went on to the University of Minnesota, where I majored in Spanish and linguistics. We were very active in Central America at the time. My big plan was to be a cryptographer or something along that line. I had to take an art class, and just luckily I figured photography would be the most practical for being a spook. Still never forget to this day my very first day in the darkroom watching the image come up from the bottom of the tray. That was just this magic that I had to do over and over and over and over again. We were given an assignment where we had to do pictures of an object, and okay, well, here's an egg, and I carried an egg around with me and did pictures of this egg. So my first picture was a picture of an egg, yes. Almost within months of learning how to work in a darkroom, I was hired at the Minnesota Daily as a lab tech. It was funny because the guy that hired me as a lab tech, Jeff Wheelers, when he hired me, he said, "You're a beautiful printer, but you'll never be a photographer." But that started me working at the Daily, where I basically learned my trade. I eventually ended up as the photo editor for the arts and entertainment section, which gave me access to First Avenue.
While covering events at the famed nightclub First Avenue in Minneapolis, Dan Corrigan would eventually cement a relationship with the club that would have Corrigan photographing, documenting, and archiving most of the events and concerts that would happen at the club for the next few decades.
So I shot everything that was down there. I started doing favors for the club whenever they needed pictures, things, or promotion. Shoot at least six shows a month. I would have to say that I was probably more of a assignment photographer. I love the idea that somebody said, "Here, I need a picture of this that is going to go here for this reason." So, I mean, the beauty of assignment photography is every day was different.
Eventually, Corrigan would take his photography skills out of the club and apply them to portraiture and doing band photographs for promotional materials and album covers.
Love shooting portraits. Well, the camera is good at capturing details of a person's face, and a person's face is good at giving details off about how they feel, how they are. If somebody starts to get bored and fidgety at a photo shoot because you overextended how long you should be with them, that's obvious. It shows up because the band members hated being in it. Like, oh God, do we have to do this? I mean, it's not really that hard. Here, stand there, look here. Dear friend John Munson, who's been in 5 or 6 different, maybe more, photo shoots with me, finally at one point said, "You know what, I finally get your trick." He goes, "You hypnotize your bands." And I think there might be something to that, but there is a certain pace when I get a band going, because I'm very, very fast. But when a band walks in, I get them moving one way and the other, and before you know it, we're done.
Hired by Twin Tone Records and the Replacements manager David Ayers, Corrigan created perhaps his most internationally known photograph, the album cover to the Replacements' 1984 LP, Let It Be.
It's funny because that for sure is my most famous picture. It was curious because that was actually a reshoot, and I did this beautiful picture in an elevator at Kaufman Union, and I think that's actually a pretty more interesting story because I had tricked him into the elevator and then stopped it between floors where I had him literally trapped in this small space. Ayers didn't really like and wanted me to reshoot him, and I went and spent an afternoon at the Stinson's house, I think, where they practiced in the basement. I did pictures of that. Then we went up and did the pictures on the roof. When we got done with those, I still thought that the elevator picture was just the stronger image. I still think that that image is famous because of the music on the album. There's so much has been written into that picture, you know. It's been dissected and copied and lampooned, and at the time I didn't see it. You know, I didn't see anything. Last May, I fell off my bike and landed on my head and suffered a traumatic brain injury, and actually changed the way that my eyes work. That I was able to quantify where that change happened. I have a hyper sharpened spot in my field of view that when something passes through that spot that's colorful or shiny or bright, it makes it pop out of the scene. I had to figure out some way to just see that. That started this process, and they're abstract in that they're just designs that I see. The trick is to have them all straight out of the camera. I don't do any manipulation after the fact beforehand. So I want to trick the light before it gets in the camera. So I use mirrors and gels and flashlights. Anything goes. So I guess it's in some sort of way I treat it as art therapy for myself. I love what it's done for my pictures. I look back and I think, well, maybe that's exactly what I needed, was a savage blow to the head. I'm so entertained by looking at stuff that it was been almost worth it.